Ed, it's so good to have you here with us, to be on this community exploration. And I'm not just grateful to connect with you as a friend, but also because of all the experience and the really embodied knowledge that you represent for me when it comes to communities, because that's basically what you've been bathing in the last 2 decades. So yeah, instead of having like a super long introduction of your beautiful biography, I'd just be curious, in the context of community, what would you define as your current role and excitement in that field?
Great question. Yeah, my current role would be I kind of find myself always in between communities, so pollinator, connector, bridge. I also find myself playing, a role for years now, bridging people from one life to another, from the US or Europe, or from not a place, but a type of life, like corporate life,
Mm.
to a more relaxed life here in Costa Rica. Whether that's in community or in a neighborhood or in an eco village, it doesn't matter. But I like to facilitate their exploration, and so I guess that's my current excitement. That's been my excitement for a while, is just to explore what the emerging concepts of community are, like physical
Mm.
community and also community of people, invisible structures, and yeah, what tools are out there for us
Hmm.
to
And what I always,
collectively. Sorry, go ahead.
right. Yeah, what I always appreciate about our conversations is that you embody for me such a beautiful humbleness despite all the knowledge that you have. I feel that you're constantly pushing yourself to be in this inquiry of the not knowing, and knowing that we're in this exploration of, you know, doing something that is probably very ancient. I heard this quote just this morning in a podcast where someone said, "We're on the edge of a 10,000-year-old technology." And this leading edge of this ancient technology that we've been doing as humans, I think it's so much of, uh, on one hand, an inquiry and something that wants to be discovered, and on the other hand, something that is so deep within us. Especially when we're speaking about these invisible structures of communities, about the internal aspect, there's something in us that just knows how it is to be in community, to be a tribal being. And we're in a way taking these ancient experiences that we have on a physical level and mapping them onto our current reality and seeing like, oh, we've come a long way from disconnecting ourselves and living a very individualized lifestyle. And now we're realizing community is actually the answer to a lot of the questions that we have at the moment collectively. So when we look at these invisible structures, what we also have been riffing on before is this idea that people come to community with a lot of projections. They have certain ideas of, once I live in community, my children will be taken care of, I will have permaculture food, and all my emotional emptiness and the needs that I have will be met by the people around me, which is a bit of a exaggerated and romanticized vision of community. But nonetheless, it's still something that I see with other people. And one of the experiences that I have is that community doesn't magically dissolve all our problems, it even magnifies them. So I'd be curious, from the work that you're doing with your clients, what do you see as a challenge when it comes to these inner structures? Or maybe you just want to, build on the chord that I just stroked.
Yeah. I think one is just the first step that you've taken, which is to recognize the nuanced complexities of what community means. Okay, on different levels, on physical infrastructure, on a people level, and so I've been participating in a community that we meet mostly digitally, but explore those invisible structures. You've sat in on some phone calls for that group, and yeah, it's us reflecting to each other, as you said, the magnification. It's us reflecting to each other with full integrity, truth, and when we're out of alignment with truth. And so, to me, that's the base level of work, of people starting to rub. Like, hey, yesterday you said something to me. It kind of triggered me professionally, because I'm dealing with this thing, X, Y, and Z, and you know, and so most people just kind of swallow those resentments and those things, and stuff builds up. And even in communities that I know in beach towns, like you start to hear rumors and this, and I'm like, hey, why don't you just talk to that guy and ask him why he's building X, Y, and Z that you think is horrible? And
Mm-hmm.
it's that just lack of simple communication that I think, I'm really delighted, at least where we live in Costa Rica, we could get a taste of it. Like you're living right now in the Caribbean. I live in Ciudad Colon. I have this nuclear community of friends that I see, yet autonomy in my house. Let's say we're PE, pre-eco village. We have in most of these neighborhoods that my friends are living some kind of Waldorf school or alternative school, some kind of organic market. People have houses. Some are affordable, some are not, but there's a mix. And I think that's community for me right now. If we want a petri dish to test, if we could do it there and then somebody builds like the gated community eco village, Tamara, Damanhur, Findhorn, like one of these legendary places, God bless. I just think like there's some complexity even on this level where it's a first step, I think.
Mhm. Totally. Yeah. And in that sense, you're also speaking about the invisible structures that even bring us together if we don't have the physical structures. Yeah. There is an invisible web of interconnectedness and of relationships that bring us together where we can already experience the degree of community that we're wanting to strive for. And so I would even go as far to say, if you don't have a sense of community in your current life yet, you will probably also not have that if you're moving into a gated community. Or if you're unhappy with your life right now, you will probably not be happy as soon as you move into a community, but you will have to find that within yourself first before you can actually experience that with others. And then, that's the ideal, coming into a community structure as a whole human being, where you've done your inner work, coming into a culture where everyone has done the inner work, then you can actually multiply that. And then it is magnified and you can co-create in a way that actually gives something back to the world around you. You can regenerate nature, you can regenerate the social field, but not from a place of lack, but from a place of already fullness and overflowing. And then really bringing that instead of, this idea of I go to community to get something. So I think that's an important mind shift.
Yeah, and by the way, that shifted for me a lot after festival culture because I came out of Burning Man and festivals, and I would give talks at Envision in my early days on community. And like I see these people, and they were like based on the questions that were asked, it's like, oh, like who's gonna do community for me? And I'm like, no, like community is built together. Even like the person, like let's say like Stephen Brooks, who's built an eco village here. At the end of like building the eco village, he becomes one out of 50 houses. It's not like his community. Sure, he's like the spearhead, but it really has to be built by the people. And then problems will start to emerge and resolve along the way. Like I've seen friends, recently just toured Costa Rica, seeing a lot of eco villages and neighborhoods. There's issues with how to do agriculture the right way, fully off grid or, in interwoven community with farms around your region. Questions about recycling and simple sustainability that like we're not nailing. Communication, so there's so many levels of community practical problems that if you go and sit in on the HOA meeting of an eco village, it's amazing because like the more conscious the people, the more there was like, like what I experienced were questions that didn't have simple answers that I thought like, hey, should more money from my HOA fee go towards the school or the permaculture? Oh, that's a good question. And one person's like, I don't have a kid. So is there a way that like my money could go just towards the permaculture and the person? And so, then there was a little bit of a bickering. But I recognize that some of this eco village stuff is tough until we can figure it out. Maybe first on smaller, more interdependent model, like a couple friends living on a land together and testing micro community. I don't know. That excites me.
Beautiful. And I want to dive a little deeper on that last thing that you said with these questions that don't have a one size fits all answer. If you were a consultant and you had all the perfect models, you could go in there and say like, this is how you're going to do it. But I would be curious to hear, how are you supporting your clients to find answers or to be in that question more?
Yeah, I'm hyper focused on just one part of the exploration, which is the pre-development, pre-anything. It's the first stage. So I take them usually through a 3-month process where we'll really hone in on their vision, like be hyper clear on the vision and compare it to what they want in life. Like I have so many people who want to build a gorgeous retreat center, but also tell me that they want to relax and semi-retire and explore art and creativity. So I'm like, no match here. Build something smaller. So we map out a vision, we map out a budget to that vision, and we map out whether they have land or are looking for land, all of the stuff that it takes, so that all the way up to master planning if they end up buying land or finding land. They have a full clarity of what they can build, from a house to like a mini retreat center to whatever, even in phases. Like they bought a piece of land, but they just have money for their house now. So yeah, just to organize people in first taking the leap and exploring different communities around Costa Rica. Looking for land, looking for like the different setups that would make them happy, but also starting to hone in on what their vision is. And sometimes it's not to do a project, it's just to get their family settled in a house. So then they could think about maybe doing something. But I usually hit the brakes on people and I'm like, what do you need right now? Like, what do you want? You don't have to save the world. Some really are building eco villages and retreat centers, and I help those people. I have like a few pretty large projects. But some are just families who are building their house with a yoga deck for ecstatic dance and a little bit of hosting. So I'm just really happy for people to hone in on what Life 2.0 looks like. So I advise them on the traditional stuff and then coach them on the life stuff. Yeah.
So in regards to the example that you had, this conversation of where should we put the money, more to the school, more to the permaculture, it's actually a symptom of not having asked yourself that question. And the problem is from way back in the past where they didn't do that kind of inquiry that you're guiding people through, and that shows up in later stages of the project then as these kinds of, very fundamental questions actually that haven't been asked early enough. So that's beautiful that you're, being this preemptive medicine for people on that process. Super beautiful to hear. If people want to learn more about your work, what's the best way to get in contact with you and to find out more?
Yeah, best way is just my website, which is livethepossibility.co. It's not .com, it's .co. And I have a newsletter there where I basically share all this kind of fun information. It has links to a free online course that I have. And yeah, those who want to work on projects, you could click to do a little application form if you want to work together. But yeah, I love giving tons of feedback and free content from my travels around Costa Rica every week and month. So just being on the newsletter, I think people would enjoy a lot. Yeah.
For sure. I can highly recommend it. It not only has very insightful knowledge of your work, but also some super inspiring, beautiful aesthetic pictures of all the amazing places that you travel. So it's a beautiful resource. Thank you so much for all the amazing work that you're doing. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to diving into the call with you on Tuesday, at least for a few minutes. Have a beautiful rest of your day. All right.
Thank you, Jonathan.